Hi, it's Sally-Shakti, your Star Priestess and Visionary Writing Guide, and welcome to Writing and Thriving for Visionary Writers. And today I have the blessing of welcoming Jen Thomas, who is going to talk to us about your writing project, Nature's Wisdom. So let's dive right in and hear from you, Jen. Tell us a little bit about you and how you started writing Nature's Wisdom.
Thank you. Lovely. Thank you. So, hi, everyone. I'm Jen Thomas. I am a spiritual coach, a healer, also a priestess under the tutelage of Goddess Isis. I'm a certified angel guide and a TEDx speaker. And my passion is in emotions and the way that we feel and helping people to be able to feel their emotions again. Many of us having numbed ourselves or protected ourselves over many years. And so nature was my healer. Nature has been my greatest teacher. And after I burnt out in corporate in 2015, nature was my path back to love and well-being, self-acceptance, and restoring, revitalizing my strength, self-worth, and who I am and what I'm here for.
Well, that's a powerful story that we need to dive into, Jen. I want to first of all ask you, we'll go a little bit off tangent, but first to ask you, as a priestess of Isis, is that a path that actually you're working with to help people to feel some of those suppressed emotions? Because when you mentioned that many of us, especially I think on this visionary path, tend to have a tendency to suppress our emotions and a pattern of having done so over, you said, many years, but I feel that that also relates to many lifetimes, especially when we have had lifetimes of persecution and harm that has been caused to us or been done to us because of the wisdom and the truth that we have spoken. So maybe you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, very much so. I think, however it's shown up over, centuries, millennia, even, or in this lifetime, many of us have carried that persecution kind of wound with us, however it's shown up. And so we have learned to mask and hide our true selves, mostly unconsciously. I don't think, none of us have really done it consciously or intentionally. We have just learned, and whether that be in a soul memory or cellular muscle memory, we have learned to just keep safe. We've learned how to keep safe. And so, yeah, my journey with Goddess Isis has absolutely been about being able to speak my truth, stand up and say who I am and what I'm about and what my values and beliefs are. And it wasn't easy. Really was not easy at the beginning. I have always considered myself to be a very confident, forthright, probably quite outspoken person. And I'm sure those that have worked with me or know me over the years would agree with that. But coming out of my spiritual closet and being able to freely speak about being an interspecies communicator as well was the hardest thing I've ever journeyed through, despite, all the trauma that I've experienced in this lifetime and previous lifetimes. It was so hard to do. I laugh about it now because it was the best thing that I ever did. And it's so freeing and empowering. But yeah, it was not easy.
Oh my goodness, I resonate with that so much. I think it's really, you giving a context for grounding that process and saying, look, I was already confident, I was outspoken, that's what people would see in me. I just want to tell you a little bit about my story because I'm going through it right now. It's like, you know, I'm a Leo rising. You know, I've got that confidence, but I'm sure people see that in me. I can speak my truth in many contexts now. But this weekend just gone, I was on the first weekend of my second year of priestess training, and it's moved online, so we're not all together in the little safety net of being in the temple. We're in our own homes and with our partners in the room next door. So could I speak my truth? We're being asked to command the cosmos, right? And I was the terror. I mean, and I think this goes back lifetimes, because it's not just about that my partner was in the room next door, but the terror for me to be able to open my mouth and speak under those circumstances. The only thing I could do was break down in absolute tears. I couldn't speak my truth. I couldn't speak any words at all. This is a big pattern of mine that I'm shifting, I think, with these eclipses, which will be hopefully over by the time this interview comes out. But yeah, that terror of knowing that I'm confident enough to speak my truth under many circumstances, but there is a level there beyond which I could not pass. And I think that's what you're speaking to, and is that some of the work that you do to support people if they're also experiencing something similar?
Yeah, very much so. And thank you for sharing that. I think it's so good for those of us that are, you know, already spiritually awakened and very connected, to be able to share that this path is, you know, ever expanding. We're always learning. We still, you know, reach those precipices that, you know, invite us to shed the next layer, you know, and grow. And I think that's it. So many of my clients have come to me talking about, so cord cutting is one of my signature treatments, and soul retrieval as well. And so many of them have come to me saying, oh, I've been through every therapy known and none of it's worked. And I take that time to reassure them in that moment and say, actually, I believe all of it has worked. All of it has worked, because there's never just one layer to an experience, to a trauma, particularly if we're talking, you know, generational and ancestral trauma that we're likely carrying too. You know, that doesn't clear in, you know, one session. But in order to get to, you know, and I often help people with the root cause, then in order to get to that and be able to do that, you know, all the other things they've tried will have worked and enabled them and empowered them to be able to clear it.
That's such a refreshing approach, Jen. It's not like, yeah, all the other modalities don't work, you have to do my way. But it is this evolutionary path, it's this spiral. We're always on it, we're always deepening into it, we're always evolving through it, we're always meeting that next edge of resistance. And you know, probably I would say that all of the modalities that they've tried up to that point have also then enabled them to come to you to get the next layer of healing that they need, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, working with this universal energy and the cosmos, we know we're all interconnected, and the one action affects another action, and the ripple effect. So it makes absolute sense to me that if you experience one modality, it will have an impact on clearly yourself, but the greater good and the collective as well, you know.
Yeah, we could go off on a whole other rabbit hole about quantum healing right now, but I think I'm going to bring it back, because one of the other things you mentioned in that story of your introduction was well, you just mentioned it, interspecies communication. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe then roll that into how that connects with your writing that you do, Nature's Wisdom?
Yeah, of course, I'd love to, especially now that I feel not only comfortable doing so, but really, excited about it as well. So it started this whole journey. Well, I mean, it started when I was little, obviously, but in this kind of spiritual phase of this lifetime, it started about 6 or 7 years ago when I was working with my very first spiritual mentor. And she said to me, just kind of in passing, oh, you communicate with animals, don't you? And I burst out laughing, still in quite an egoic state, if you like, burst out laughing and said, don't be so ridiculous. I can't talk to animals. And yeah, of course, then the universe, really went out of its way to show me, yeah, you can. And moreover, I believe we all can, and we all do. We're just not aware that we can. So I want to give that really relatable story of when Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. So many hundreds and hundreds of people tried to break the 4-minute mile. And then as soon as he did it, everybody could do it. Well, not everybody, but lots more, but I could do it, but lots more people could then do it because they believed it was possible. Right. So as soon as we are shown something, we can, we're still very much in our ego state. We need to see physical things with our own eyes to believe it often, don't we? And I think that's what I love about Nature's Wisdom, is that it's tangible. It's, we can see nature with our human eyes. We can touch it with our physical hands. We can feel it, with our heart emotions. And so, so for me, then I started getting intentional. So I go out walking in the forest most days. I'm very lucky to live near a forest and spend time in nature. And I just started looking through different eyes and looking at the trees differently, listening to the birds differently, with intention. And then I started to realize that I'd always done that. For as far back as I can remember, I'd noticed nature. Even the smallest insect. I remember a story. I'll share a story. Walking to school with my friend, back in the day when we walked to school with my friend, and walking down a footpath downhill, quite a busy road. And then there was a little tiny sort of coppice of trees we walked through as a shortcut. And we were just walking through there. And for me, it was the most natural thing to spot and then say. And I looked at my friend and went, oh, look, there's a ladybird. And it was sat on the trunk of a tree. And she burst out laughing and just said, Jen, only you could notice a tiny ladybird on an enormous tree as we're walking to school. And so, yeah, I realized I'd always been connecting with nature in some way. And then go on.
No.
Well, then, the synchronicity and the magic started to unfold. And I love how, the angelic realm and our soul team and our spirit guides work in digital spaces as well now. I love it. And so I was just scrolling through Facebook, as you do, one day, and there was an ad for a talk in a tiny little village near me from a South African lady called Winter Worthstorm, about talking with animals and interspecies communication. And off I went. there it was. That it was impossible to say no to. Right? And so I arrived at this talk feeling quite nervous and, you know, a bit weird. And I hadn't told anyone apart from this one spiritual mentor about this experience of mine. And I sat in this village hall with, I don't know, perhaps 20, 30 other people. And I shared with her my experience of communicating with animals. And for me, and I share this in my book, for me, it started, I'd love to say it was this really, you know, serene, magical, beautiful experience with a deer in the forest or something. But no, it was with a blue bottle fly. And, you know, as I was sharing this story with her, learning to communicate with this fly, that she was just nodding like it was the most natural conversation in the world. And then I went on to train with her and really refine my skills. And it is through working with her and that training and all the subsequent synchronicities that led me to writing Nature's Wisdom Life Lessons from Mother Earth.
Yeah, Jen. So let's go back a moment. So before you started working with her and your angels showed up in the digital space, you said that the universe just gave you this whole kind of like raft of experiences showing you that you could communicate with animals, or another species. What were some of those, or what was one kind of interesting highlight?
Yeah, so another one. So obviously that there was that Facebook post and the fly in itself. So the fly, I'll share a little bit about it. I was sitting here at my desk and it was a really hot summer that year. I think it was 2018, I think. And so I'd got all the doors and windows open and my business was fairly new. It was only 2 years old. So I was sitting here just really in my head, typing away, creating content, promoting my business. And this enormous like blue bottle fly came in and it was so loud and it was, just buzzing around, really frustrated with it and just shouted at it like, go away. I'm trying to concentrate. And what did the fly do? It did not go away and leave me alone. It flew and landed on my keyboard and looked at me. It just sat there looking at me, 6 inches away from my face. And it was just the sensation and the feeling that came over me. And I just knew within my heart that that fly was saying, I just want you to see me. I just want you to be seen. I just want to be seen. And it was such a reflection of what was going on for me at the time. I just wanted to be seen so that my business would grow. What a lesson. And then in my meditation practice, I was noticing animals showing up. They would just arrive in my third eye. So I would just either just see them. Sometimes they would come into my meditation space asking for healing as well. Could I help them in some way? Which of course I did, not really knowing what I was doing either, but just going with it and trusting what the experience. And they were all in the main animals from South Africa and the African continent, which wasn't a huge surprise to me because my late father was South African. So I could feel a trusting kind of loving connection come through there. And so I just shared this story last week, actually, on my platform, that one day it was a very deep shadow work phase I was going through. And I was sat on this precipice of a valley, and like this very dark, shadowy crevice in the valley. that I knew I had to go into, and I really didn't want to. You know, it was like that inner child going, no, I'm not going into the dark, scary place. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize it at the time, I went on a shamanic journey, and I took my animal spirit guides with me. And that's when I learnt my ability to do soul retrieval, because I retrieved fragments of my own soul and energy during that journey. But a key part of that vision was, as I was sat resisting going on the journey, I felt a warmth over my left hand, you know, in the physical human self. But in my meditation through my mind's eye, when I looked down at my left hand, expecting to see my father's hand on top of me, what I saw was a lion's paw. And I then later learned, so I think the talk I went to with Winter was a good 6-7 months after that. And what I subsequently learned is that Winter is an ambassador of the charity that I now support, the Global White Lion Protection Trust. And so I know that lion was calling me.
Oh, wow, that's so powerful. Really, really beautiful. Thank you for sharing those stories with us, Jen. Let's move into talking about writing now. So Nature's Wisdom is a project that you share with people largely through writing. And when we first met, you were just going through the Hay House book proposal process. So maybe
That's
you can
right.
tell us about what that process was like for you, and how it's landed you where you are now with your writing.
Another part of the magical synchronistic journey, actually. So yeah, I received the email invitation from Hay House, you know, being on their marketing list, to attend a writer's workshop in Edinburgh. And my first reaction was, oh no, I can't afford it. And then I heard myself going, well, not with that attitude. You can't, not with that energy. So I said, and put it out, I said out loud, if this is meant for me and it is part of my journey for Nature's Wisdom or anything else for my highest good, show me the way. Show me the way. And of course, within 5 minutes, a friend of mine that I hadn't heard from in months and months, sent me a message, sent me a WhatsApp saying, I don't suppose you've seen this Hay House Writers Workshop, have you? Should we go together and then we can save, we can share accommodation and save money? So I was like, okay, universe, I hear you. I hear you. And so I went, we booked on to go, had the most beautiful, magical experience in Edinburgh, which is, of course, where J.K. Rowling wrote her Harry Potter books. And my goodness, can you tap into that energy there? Oh, it was amazing. The perfect place to be. And one of the offers on attending the workshop was to enter a book proposal into their competition to win a publishing contract. And so I wrote a book proposal, which is, if anybody listening to this has ever done a book proposal, you will know it is like writing a book in itself. And yeah, the other synchronistic magical moment was that right at the end of that workshop that weekend, they put up the closing date for proposals to be in, and it was on my birthday. So I just knew it was part of my path and my journey. And so I didn't win, and I now know I wasn't meant to either. So when I got the notification that I hadn't won, yes, of course, I was disappointed, upset, a bit confused. Universe, you've shown me all these signs. What's going on here? Question, self-doubt, self-doubt. And then very quickly moved into thank you. Thank you for whatever is next, because I know it's going to be amazing. And of course, within a couple of weeks, a contact of mine, so is Susie Walker. She used to be the editor of Psychology's magazine. And she started a writing group, which I joined. And it was actually through that writing group, the accountability of that I was able to write the book proposal. And she started a group on a platform called Substack, where we would continue to write together on Zoom, and she would also offer masterclasses, and I would thoroughly recommend it as well. And so she taught me about this platform, Substack. And it's worth mentioning, one of my greatest concerns about writing Nature's Wisdom, Life Lessons from Mother Earth, was about the effect on the trees. And even though I'd spoken to some trees and asked them, and shared my concerns, and the message was, we are happy to sacrifice in order for this to get out there. And it never sat with me very well. And so what I loved about Substack as a digital platform is that it means no trees need to be sacrificed, and I don't end up supporting commercial foresting either, which is something I'm precisely trying to heal through this book anyway. So all those magical, timely synchronicities. And so Nature's Wisdom, Life Lessons from Mother Earth is now out on Substack.
That's incredible, Jen. So just to be really clear, specific, you mean about not having lots of printed books made, lots of paper.
That's right.
Please cut down to create the paper to make the printed books. So you've now got it available on digital platforms. So can you tell us a little bit about how that looks for people and how they can find you?
Oh, thank you, lovely. Yeah, that's exactly why I went on Substack. So so you can find me under Jen Thomas 11 on Substack, or you can search Nature's Wisdom, Life Lessons from Mother Earth, and get a link to it there. It's just £8 a month, and you get a chapter of my journey and my life story to get to this amazing place. And then alongside that, I share the life lessons and the most beautiful, profound wisdom that I've been able to receive from nature through their voices. And so, for example, last week, the message was love from a spider. And it was this beautiful message about how spiders can help us with creativity and aligned creativity as well. It gives a very interesting perspective on fear as well. And so with that, then, because it's an interactive live platform, people can share their comments and ask questions and get coaching from me as well.
Hey. And are you writing new material for this every week, or are you so what are you also then doing? How are you blending the material you'd already written for the book?
Yeah, so essentially the feedback that was one of the amazing things about entering the Hay House Writers competition, is that I got feedback from the commissioning editor, which is for any of us that have done book proposals, to get feedback, wow. And it was so helpful. And essentially the feedback was that I needed to share more of my own story, because in the book proposal, my story, I think, was about 3,000 words in total. And so I've been a lot more open and more vulnerable and shared a lot more of my personal story. And of course, over the last 3 years, I've been receiving more and more and more messages from nature, and I see that continuing. I don't ever see that stopping.
And so what kind of response do you get from people to your story and to the wisdom that they're receiving from nature, from your writing?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been reaching out to say that my story is resonating with them deeply. So for me, the trauma was around burnout, but the burnout happened because of decades of unprocessed emotions and feelings relating to childhood traumas, to bereavements, to persecution, and all of the above that we began our conversation with. So I think it's helping people recognize they're not alone and creating that community of like-hearted people. And of course, yeah, the life lessons from nature. Essentially, people are getting inspiration, you know, to either make changes in their lives, or even last week, someone commented about being inspired to go and write her own story as a result of the message from the spider.
Yes, yes to that. That is, it sounds like that's exactly, the work is doing exactly what it needs to be doing. It's reaching people, especially through your story, and then giving people that opportunity to then also go out and create, you know, and to take those messages from nature's wisdom to tap into their own source of creativity and intuition, which of course will little by little always changes our lives and our interactions and our relationships and the ways that we show up in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And the most important relationship being the one that we have with ourselves. And I think that's what I love so much about the stories that have come through from, or the life lessons that have come through from the animals and the trees and the earth and the sky, and is supporting you on your own spiritual and personal development journey. Like one of the lions gave a message about learning to thrive and manage through great change, which couldn't be more apt for the times we're in now, could it really?
And what a gift for you to channel that wisdom, and for people to be able to read it on your Substack. And then, you know, for, you know, as you said at the beginning, we all potentially have this connection, this ability, but we're not all going to tap into it necessarily. So just having that gift of you relaying those messages, relating them to your own story, makes them really really creates that sense of connection and resonance and recognition for people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Jen, just as we approach the end of our time together today, is there anything more that you feel to share that we haven't covered yet?
I think just to say thank you to you and to everybody listening as well, because I want everybody, each and every single one of us, to know that what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling is making a difference. And we are contributing to the ripple effect and the collective. So thank you.
Oh, what a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jen, and sharing about nature's wisdom. People can go find that on Substack and connect with Jen there. And please do take the time to go and read Jen's story and find out more about the wisdom you can receive from nature.